So this evening is all about Gung Ho Pizza. So let me talk a little bit about Gung Ho Pizza. They were founded in 2010 in Beijing by three Australian, New Zealand, well, two New Zealanders and one Australian. And they are a gourmet pizza delivery company. So they deliver pizzas. They also have a little chain of franchise stores, and they talk to an international and a Chinese consumer base. So that's quite a wide spectrum of an audience. They are also a B Corp certified organization. They take sustainability, the environment, and awareness very seriously. And in 2016, they partnered with the IKEA malls, which are growing across China, and they have their restaurants within the mall. So they're getting a lot of foot traffic, a lot of awareness. They're really expanding their Chinese audience, and they were acquired in 2019. So that's an overview of this evening's brand. Now, if you guys could just in the chat, is anybody here involved with food startups, the F&B business, the service industry? If you are, just leave a quick little yes in the chat. It'd be really great to know how much of tonight's audience is really focused on promoting food, the enjoyment of food, quality food, and basically how we can tell brand stories about the food business. So a quick snapshot. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at how we develop the brand story. So on the left, you can see script number 1, and there's a little screenshot of one of the first presentations I gave back to the founding members of Gung Ho when we were developing their brand story. In the middle, you can see a slide from the final presentation that I handed over to them. And then the website screenshot shows you what their website looks like today. So I wanted to show you the beginning, the middle, and the end. Now, I wasn't involved with the website design or the logo branding, but I was involved with defining the brand story. And that's what we're really focusing on today. And a brand story document is often an internal document, something that you would use as a founder with your team and how you scale your business. And it impacts how your customer ultimately experiences your brand, but they probably won't see your brand document, your brand story presentation. It's an internal tool that you will use, and I'm going to talk about why and how this is effective. So again, here is just to give you some context. These are the slides, or some of the slides that we shared as the final handover. The ultimate document was 66 slides long, so this is just the intro. I want to give you a very clear context of what this presentation ultimately was. And again, just to let you see, so these guys are doing gourmet pizza delivery. And in this very simple image, you can see the concept of delivering gourmet food. And then what is Gung Ho? What are the qualities? What are the values? What are the things that drive the founders as well as the employees? So they believe that the Gung Ho spirit is all about having individual determination. You know, being prepared to scale up the side of a little mountain, doing some rock climbing. And all of the founders are really keen rock climbers. It's about having courage, honesty, being able to react and having awareness. They're also from New Zealand. It's the edge of the world. It's fresh, it's clean. It's got mountains, it's got rivers, it's got the beach, it's got all the different environments. It's an incredibly clean and fresh place. And that was a very strong part of their identity as they built their brand. And then how did they think about pizza delivery? They wanted to be the Porsche of pizza. They wanted to deliver high quality pizza that you would normally only consume at a restaurant, but they wanted you to enjoy that at home. So it was all about having really high expectations, a real focus on quality, and a super strong brand. So this was their positioning. We are the Porsche cars of pizza. And then defining their audience. Back in 2010, smartphones were just building momentum. We didn't have 4G, 5G, the whole array of apps that we have now. And it was for a young millennial Chinese audience, the burgeoning middle class, upwardly mobile, professionals, ambitious people, very social. How did they enjoy their free time? How did they spend time with their friends or their family? How did they see themselves? So this again is just an example of a snapshot of a consumer mood board. And the title of the slide is, who are we doing it for? Let's really identify our audience. And then thinking about why the consumer chooses GungHo. So it's convenient. This professional lady's come home from the end of a busy day. She's got a glass of wine and she's digging around in her freezer for something to eat. That is not convenient. That is just more work. And then the image in the middle, reliable. This professional, she's on the phone, she's in her car, she's checking her emails. She needs things to be reliable. And then the final image, taste. Some people enjoying a lovely slice of fresh quality pizza. So this was the way that they sorry, I'm just going to mute a few people. Okay. Excellent. So again, these visuals are all about promoting the brand values and the brand story. So they can really identify who they are serving and why they're turning up every day and doing their job. So that's a little bit about GungHo. That's just to give you an idea of the case study that we're going to dig into tonight. I want to give you some real clear context. Now let's take a step back and there's GungHo, but let's talk about what is a brand story presentation. What is the ROI that you will receive by investing in developing your brand story in a visual, emotive way? So I believe there are these benefits. So top left, a brand story presentation turns your intangible ideas that are floating around into your head, they turn them into concrete tangibles. They turn them into little bricks that you can build and share. And then the arrows icon, a brand story presentation aligns the team. Because before you have the brand story presentation, everything is just swimming around in your head. You're using daily brain energy to keep all of your ideas active. And until you can put them in a tangible form in a presentation, you're using a lot of unnecessary effort to promote your ideas. So the benefit of putting your ideas into a brand story pitch deck is that you can start to work off that. And then on the bottom column, we have a compass and a light bulb. So a brand story presentation helps you set your direction as you grow, as you iterate, as you pivot to different challenges that you are yet to discover in the journey of building a brand. And again, the light bulb represents solving problems, coming up with new ideas. When you're not quite sure what to do, you go back to the brand presentation, you go back to your brand story, and from all of this thinking, you will find solutions that get you to where you want to be. And then the final megaphone, amplify. You can share your brand story presentation with your co-founders, with your new hires, with your veterans, and you can amplify your thinking and make sure that people are aligned at solving the problems and using tangible information. Another major benefit of investing in your brand story as a presentation is you will save time. Because time is a non-refundable asset, we don't get it back. So we need to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible. And when your ideas are visual, you can share them and people can really have autonomy with their decisions because they know the values of the brand. And this is what the transformation people go through. So on the left, we have an image of somebody talking, and this poor colleague kind of confused, going, I don't quite get it. And then if you move to the image on the right, The professional now has a presentation in front of them, something visual. They speak very boldly and clearly. They say a lot less. And their teammate is able to see clearly what they're supposed to do and come up with the right results. This is the transformation you'll go through when you have your story solidified into a brand story presentation. So let's get back to the case study that we're here to talk about. Let's talk about what the client's goals were when they asked me to get on board and work with them at the early stages of their project. So they wanted an internal document, something that they could build on themselves. I wasn't supposed to finish it in the terms of how it looked for the brand. I was really focused on building a springboard, something they could bounce off. And my focus was the structure of their thinking and really starting to define their message, because ultimately they told me that the in-house design team would finish off the look and feel once we defined the content and the structure. So they approached me about 3 months before they launched in 2010. And we spent a long time having meetings, brainstorming, discovering, asking questions, and really getting deep down and figuring out what it was all about. And again, the key word here was this brand story presentation was a springboard to success. And that's how I'd like you to think about it. That the time you take to develop your brand story is really going to help you bounce further and faster and quicker. So let's just talk a little bit before we really jump into branding. Now, there are a lot of branding experts out there. They all have a lot of fantastic experience, and branding is one of those things which is all about interpretation. Now, my interpretation of a brand needs to do 3 things. Your brand needs to be easy to spot in the crowd because it is busy out there. We all have smartphones and cameras and laptops. We can all create a brand visual, a logo, very quickly. You can go to fiverr.com. You can download something off the internet. You can visualize your brand. But unless it's easy to spot in the crowd, then it's not really going to be effective. And once you've spotted a brand, it needs to connect your values to your audience's values. How can you create this relationship where people are prepared to invest in you, whether they're buying pizzas, they're buying consulting services, or they're buying a car? The brand has to really connect with its audience. And by connecting with them, it needs to empower them. Because people will only give you their attention and their money if they feel that they're going to grow and learn and be better. So whether you're choosing a car and you go for the high-end Mercedes, that shows that you're an empowered person, if that's what you believe in, if those are the values you connect with. So again, that's just some thinking that I have, my interpretation of what a brand needs to do. It has to do a lot of other things, but to me, these are the 3 most important and the ones that I'd like you to think about this evening. So we're going to do a quick poll because I'd like to sort of get you guys involved. So if you don't mind, I would like you to share whether you are involved with branding in any way. Do you own a brand? Do you work for a brand? Just let me know the vibe of the room so we can sort of understand you guys better. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Excellent. So give it a couple more seconds. All right, perfect. I'm going to end the poll right there. Let's just share the results. So we have 76% of you are directly involved with branding. Thank you so much for joining. I really hope this is going to be a great session for you. And, you know, we're all involved with branding at some point because we either create, we curate, we manage, or we consume. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. Right, moving on. So let's get into the case study. Let's talk about the process of how we created this brand story presentation. Now, I'm going to introduce to you the 8 steps to Showtime, which is my process for creating presentations. So here it is. It's 8 steps, and each step starts with an action and it ends in a result. So the first step is to generate. The result of that action is an insight, is understanding, is awareness. And then we move to the second step, to process the insights we've discovered. We want to think about our content. Step 3, we then want to start drafting our narrative. What stories are we telling based on our content and our insights? Once we've developed multiple drafts of our story and our narrative, we're happy with it. We then move it into our slides and we develop our presentation wireframes. Once we've evolved our wireframes, again, we've iterated on them, we then visualize our slides, excuse me, we develop our layouts, then we practice our performance, we revise and review our content and our performance, we lock it down at the end of step 7, and then step 8 is we perform and we enjoy. So these are the steps we go through. Now, I've run this process with students, with startups, and with CEOs, as well as the board of directors at the Volkswagen Group. So the really senior guys that control a massive portfolio of cars, brands. And this process is great because you can do it in a day if you have a short amount of time and a quick pitch to give, or you can run it over a couple of months or even a quarter, depending on your presentation goals. But this is the process that we're going to talk about this evening. And so let's look at the first step, generate. How do we figure out what we know about our story? We go into a series of discovery questions. And I have a library of about 80 discovery questions that I use when I work with people or I think about my own work. And I'm really trying to discover what are the bits and pieces of the process, of the product, of the service, of the financials, of myself as a team founder. I got to unpack all of the ideas in my head. I'm basically exploring and externalizing my ideas. So you can see in the image here, someone's got a map and they're about to go into the wilderness. And that's a little bit what it feels like. But because you're in a process of steps, you know where you are and you know where you want to go, it all works as long as you follow the process. So what does this actually look like? I'm a massive believer of working as quickly, efficiently, and simply as possible. Pen and paper is fantastic. So if you want to discover more about your brand, grab an old piece of A4, a pen, and do a simple mind map. And let your ideas grow across a page. Give them space. Start to see the tangential connections between the different jigsaw pieces of your brand so that when you're ready to present them, you can share them with clarity. Now, you might have a whiteboard. Whiteboards are fantastic. Whiteboards and sticky notes are perfect for zooming in and seeing the details, as well as pulling out and seeing the big picture. And I have spent years drawing in sketchbooks, making notes, using whiteboards. And then when I got an iPad, I loved it because you can really sketch on a tablet. So this is a screenshot from a fantastic tool called Bamboo Paper by Wacom. And it's a free app that you can use. You can buy up, you can buy extra pens and extra features, but the free version is fantastic because you can just draw with your finger and sketch in your comfort of your sofa with your tablet in the palm of your hand, and you can really explore your ideas. And when I do this, I recommend that you sketch your letters capitals, so they're nice and easy to read, and that you use what I call jump arrows. So you think about some ideas, you don't write full sentences, you write bullet points, you write your core message, and then you start to see the connections, and you can work incredibly fluidly and fast on a tablet. So if you have one, think about downloading an app, maybe do some Google searching about recommended apps. I'll share what I like to use, and it is a fantastic tool to discover your ideas. And that has basically taken us through step 1 of generating your insights. piece of paper, whiteboard, tablet. Let your ideas go. And the one thing you should never do in this step is edit. The generation phase is not about editing, it's about discovering. And then we're not going to talk about step 2 because that's really your own process of organizing your thinking. I use Evernote, so I turn my sketches into text-based lists so that I know that I have my content, I can spell check it, I can organize it. And then I move it into step 3, where I start to draft my narrative. And again, you can either use a slide-based software like PowerPoint or Keynote or Google Slides to start organizing. I recommend you work in Word or Pages and work in a text-based software so you're not distracted with adding images just yet. Because step 3 is all about refining your narrative, thinking about the stories you want to share, identifying the key points that are going to create your brand story presentation. And then once you've developed that through maybe 1 or 2, 3, possibly maximum 3 drafts, then you want to move your ideas into your slides. And that is step 4 when we start to structure a wireframe. Now, I am very, very strict on the first time I make a presentation, it is literally just the content on the slides. And these are keywords, titles, headlines, maximum 15 words per slide. Don't let your slides become your script. Your slides will amplify and visualize your message. And it's very important that you are strict about keeping the first version as wireframe only, because this allows you to work fast and you're not distracted by adding images, changing the frame, giving it a drop shadow, all those cosmetic things, which until your story is structurally perfect, they don't make any difference and they just use up all your time. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So text only in the wireframe phase of developing your brand presentation. Really focus on the content only. So when I had my discovery sessions with the founders of Gung Ho Pizza, we had a couple of coffee shop sessions, we went to someone's house, we spent the afternoon talking, I was making notes on my iPad, and then I went to have a follow-up meeting after about a week, and I showed them this, and they sort of looked at me like, why are we looking at just text? And I explained that my process was focused on content only first. So here we have 21 slides, and there's quite a lot of content here on each slide, but there's space between the lines, it's sentences, fragments of sentences, bullet points, lists. In fact, let's have a proper look at slide number 3. So here is when we're talking about what is Gung Ho. Gung Ho equals dare to be done, taking risks, being passionate, rolling your sleeves up, getting it done, being full on, being robust, rolling it out. And Gung Ho originated the phrase from a New Zealander called Rui Ali. And he lived in China for a long time, and he was an incredibly hardworking social entrepreneur way back at the beginning of the 20th century. And he was a real motivation for the Gung Ho founders. And so this slide here is basically words, but what I'm doing when I'm handing this over to the founders is saying, is this what you think? Have I got it right? Because I don't want to spend time visualizing it if I've got it wrong. So this is the point where we configure our message, and they can give me feedback, they can give me input, we can iterate, because this is a very fast way of working. And just to give you an idea that this slide ultimately ended up as 3 slides with a lot less text and some visuals. So I just wanted to show you how from a wireframe can transition into a finished visual slide. So let's see what these slides, so again, this is where we started, and then Gung Ho is team, hardworking, team players, strong spirit. And I love this image because everybody is important. You know, whether you're the horizontal of the bridge and you've got somebody standing on your feet and somebody standing on your shoulders, you are the keystone. And then the woman who's leaping forward is taking that risk and being ambitious and doing it for the team. So this image has 1,000 stories that you can talk about, and it all comes back to team. So this is how we're talking about the team spirit as we're building the brand. And then here is our inspiration, the founder of the phrase Gung Ho. And on the picture on the right with the guy in a boat, a boat, that's the New Zealand dry sense of humor, the hey, we can do it. We don't take ourselves too seriously. So this is the Gung Ho spirit. And then again, the Gung Ho methodology mindset was we turn a weakness into a strength. Again, we are a team. We can get to the top if we work together. So these images, because we really focused on the message that we want to share, and we defined the content, we were then able to find images that really amplified those feelings, so that when you're onboarding new delivery guys, or you're adding HR people, or you're getting marketing and brand people onto your team, you can show them these images and say, this is what our brand feels like. And again, your customer doesn't see these images, but they feel the result. So let's talk about the benefits of working at step 4 with text only. It's fast, you can iterate, you can do loops and cycles. So you can get feedback, you can make updates, you can do improvements very, very quickly. And again, that is the whole point in this step 4, because we're not trying to make the best graphic design slides possible, the most beautiful pictures. We're talking about content. And so we want to work quickly. If we've got it wrong, we need to reverse, get it right, and continue. We don't want to start falling in love with slides that we've designed because they look nice, but they don't actually communicate the message that we're trying to convey. So again, just to give you a little bit of context, we wrote the script as just words. We developed it as visuals, and then they were able to create an incredible brand that in 9 years partnered with IKEA, got B Corp certification, and was ultimately sold 2 years ago. That's not a bad result. So let's do another poll quickly. So let me just launch poll number 2. Please let me know, how do you use presentations? And just to let you know, these polls are anonymous. I don't collect the data. I'm just collecting the results. I'm not tracking who's saying what. So do you make presentations for others? Are you part of the team, or are you delivering the presentations? If you do both, then you please click deliver presentations. Fantastic. Excellent. Let's end that poll very quick. Thank you, guys. Let me share the results. So we have a lot of people on the call who deliver presentations. You know what it feels like to be on your virtual stage, on an in-person stage, sharing your stories, letting your slides amplify your message. Thank you. That is fantastic. Okay. Brilliant. So let's keep going. So we have talked about generating our content, drafting our content, structuring our wireframes, and now it's about visualizing our layouts. So a lot of my design influence and a lot of my cues in design come from Apple. I'm a total Apple head. I have never owned a PC. I think PCs are fantastic if that's what you want, but for me, Apple really works. Now, if you go to apple.com right now, you'll see this page on the apple.com UK platform. iPhone 12, best, blast past fast. A beautiful picture of the new phone. Super elegant, super simple, a lot of white space, a lot of confidence, really a mature design. There's no distractions, there's no fluff. It's like, do you want an iPhone 12? Now, if we roll back the clock and we go back to the 1970s when they were launching Apple II, Their design aesthetic, the way they communicate, their design feeling hasn't really changed because it works. They have clean design. It is minimal. And the focus is on the content, on the message, on the product, on your feelings about the brand. And it's an emotional, immediate imagery. If you see this image back in the 70s, you were at a computer fair, computers everywhere, and there's a picture of an apple, a red, crisp apple on a white background, you're going to remember Apple. Absolutely no question. And what I really believe is that when you're developing your slides, apart from your name in the top right-hand corner, avoid slide-by-slide branding. Because during a presentation, the speaker is the focus. And I know that companies have certain requirements and you have to follow these, but when you're in control, as much as you can, remove that branding because it's taking away your visual real estate of your slides and it's adding noise to your message. And then design your slides so they're bold and easy to read. My measure is, can I read it on a smartphone? Because if I can read it on a smartphone, that means it's bold, it's clear, and it's confident. And so I'm just sharing this with you because these are the design principles I bring to slide design. And you'll see as we go deeper into the final slides that I shared, that it's really quite simple. Because again, my job was not to create a consumer-facing presentation. My job was to create an internal document that was a springboard to growth, scale, and success. So again, here are some of the slides. No title, no branding. What is it? It's a delivery guy delivering amazing quality food. That was the essence of Gung Ho's starting vision. And then here's a little sequence of slides from the final presentation. You've seen a couple of them already. So top left, Gung Ho is individual. And it's got a climbing theme because again, that's what resonates with the founders. Gung Ho is team. We keep the climbing analogy going as a team of climbers are traversing a gap. Then we pull out a bit and go, well, what does that actually mean? We're at the foot of the mountain, the pathways in front of us, we can see the summit of our destination. It's the journey as well as where we're ultimately going to be. What are we going to experience on every footfall of this journey down the path and up the mountain? And then the final image, the Gung Ho way. 3 guys, 3 founders, they've made it to the top of the mountain, they're enjoying the moment, and what a view. Wow, that's what it's all about. That is what's driving them. So you can see this narrative through these visuals in this brand story presentation is all about communicating the feeling of what we need at each individual step from ourselves, from our teammates, on the journey, and when we get there. And remember, this started as a lot of text, and then it transitioned into a lot of images. And it does need a speaker to share it, but that is the whole point. You're there to promote your brand. And if you were going to develop this and send it as a remote presentation, you might want to add a few more words or maybe some slide notes, but the focus is on the feeling of the images, and the images are coming from the content. Again, another sort of side-by-side example of some of the slides we created. So the 2 of the founders, Jade and John. Jade from the South Island, John from the North Island. Jade ran barefoot as a kid, was able to run the wilderness of his parents' farm in New Zealand. His mum had a pizza oven. His mates would all come over and eat pizza all the time at the weekends. And he's a real pizza head. And then John sees himself as a little bit of a James Bond character, quite suave, quite sophisticated, very stylish. And he ended up doing Domino's Pizza University. So he went in at the corporate end and he figured out how pizza is made on scale. So these 2 founding partners were very much complementary. They contrasted each other and they complemented each other. And again, where are they both from? The edge of the world, New Zealand, so fresh, so clean, the best ingredients, the best products. Again, it's all part of their brand story. But what's New Zealand like if you've never been there? And if you're talking to a Chinese audience, what is the New Zealand vibe? Well, it's about being laid back and enjoying your environment, but at the same time being up for it when it counts. You've seen the All Blacks, national pride of New Zealand, the haka dance that gets people in the zone. You can be laid back and not take yourself too seriously, but when it matters, you step up. And these are all parts of your brand story, how you can communicate your values. And then they wanted to talk about themselves as a company and as a product. So what is Gung Ho not? And it's quite important here to think, well, we have to define in our brand story what we are, and then we have to go to the other end of the spectrum and describe what we are not. Gung Ho is not boring. It's not corporate, which we called Mr. Ham and Pineapple, which is kind of the most generic pizza flavor that you could have. And it's not cookie cutter. So they don't want to be a sort of frozen pizza in a box that has no flavor and taste. They want to have flair. So again, you define what you are in your brand story, and you define what you're not. And it's very simple visuals and images, which might be stereotypes, as long as they're not offensive, because they will really amplify and they will let people see what corporate is for them and what boring is for them. And we don't want to, have any prejudices, but we want to have a bit of a joke and say, well, we're not these images and you can relate to these. And again, they talked about being the Porsche of Pizza. So a super nice picture of a Porsche driving around a racetrack, full motion. It's not a beauty shot from a catalog, it's in action. And then a great picture of a pizza, a lovely crust, a lovely topping, a nice piece of paper. Perfect. And again, we've seen this slide already, but in context, who are we doing it for? Our audience is professional. They work in big companies, they are on the move, they have time with their families, they're very social outdoors, they like to meet up with friends, they have house parties, they're very stylish. And in 2010, this was really accelerating in China because it wasn't too many decades before when life was very different. And my wife is Chinese, and my Chinese mother-in-law had a very different upbringing. So this was a big shift in the Chinese mindset, and Gung Ho Pizza wanted to be part of that. And again, overviewing the values, convenience, reliability, and taste. And you choose your vision and your mission and your words, which identify your brand, but then how do you express that? And the great thing with social media is you can pull images offline, which are real. They're not stock images, which have been slightly posed, very well lit, and a little bit fake. These are very authentic pictures that people have taken and shared. And because this is an internal document, you can use them as long as you're not making money off them in the public domain. They're reference images. And again, they wanted to talk about why are we doing this? What's their big, hairy, ambitious goal? If you're familiar with that phrase, they wanted to empower people. They wanted to empower local Chinese entrepreneurs to be able to franchise Gung Ho and create sustainable businesses. That was part of the vision. So, as we reach the end of this little case study breakdown, my job to build the brand story presentation was to do the heavy lifting on developing the brand, doing the thinking with the founders, and then taking those ideas and presenting them in a way that the founders could build, as well as take a slice of ownership. And so maybe the CTO or the CFO wasn't in those meetings, but they could look at this presentation afterwards, see themselves, see the motivation, take a slice, a bit like a pizza slice, and be part of an amazing brand that in 9 years went from an idea to an acquired business. So my final handover, what I gave the guys, was a presentation that allowed them to achieve this, to be acquired in 2019. And after I handed over this brand story presentation, I never heard from them again. And that is a good thing, because not hearing means nothing's broken. When you don't hear from a client in a project like this, they're too busy being successful. They're too busy solving problems and challenges and